I think everybody has PTSD from whatever they experienced in their life. I mean, I used to think PTSD was a military thing. No, it's a syndrome that has to do with trauma and having emotional trauma. And so then we trigger people's trauma. And that trauma doesn't have to be, that you were in some military zone and watching people around you get, killed and blown to pieces. It could happen in watching your family get blown to pieces emotionally in a house, or the abuses that we see all around, etc., can really cause a triggerable trauma. All right? And I'd like to be able to deal with that, but I also want to make sure that it's appropriate in a Sabbath setting and how that really works out, because I've taught all the mechanics. If you want to understand any mechanics, every piece of mechanic I think is already on tape, so to speak. We don't use tapes anymore, whatever. I've recorded every halakhic, mechanical thing that I can think of, I think, at this point. Now it's more about things like darkness and light. This is all about scripturally understanding your emotional place. The trust versus belief versus fear and doubt versus, all of that mess. So we're going to do more and more of that, hopefully. What was that? Stuff that causes you to need a feelings bag, okay? And you need a feelings bag because you've got feelings that you don't have control over, all right? And so I can promise you everything I struggle with is because there's stuff out there that can still trigger an auto response. Same for you. The stuff you struggle with most is because there are things out there that trigger an auto response. In other words, there's something out there that's still programmed in you that when something happens will start the play button. And then you don't have control anymore. And now you're enslaved to a trauma. And you can't have relationships make it in a successful way if that person can trigger, especially because they don't have the map to the minefield. Because none of us give that out when we get married or have relationships, because you don't even know where all the mines are sometimes. Things trigger and you had no idea. Sometimes you had no idea it was there. Oh, I thought I'd already dealt with that. Boom, next thing you know, it's full trigger. But we need to go get the minesweepers out and go get all those mines cleared up. That's a work. That's a big project right there. Amen? Okay, so I know that you've already noticed that a lot of the teachings are heading in that direction, but they're scripturally based, important. I mean, this book talks about all of the New Testament, especially writings, talk a lot about where you struggle in your heart and your head. Remember, Yeshua's talking to Jews mostly. Actually, Yeshua's talking to Jews only when he's talking in the four Gospels and telling them, look, it's not a mechanical problem. The reason you do the mechanics in a wrong way sometimes is because you have a psycho-emotional problem, a trust problem, a belief problem. Not because it's hard to do the mechanics. Well, nobody can really keep the Torah. Really, what? What can't you do? I challenge you on that. Show me what Torah is so hard. Only because of the triggered emotional traumas and stuff and the insecurity and trust. There's nothing physically hard to do. Okay? Equal weights, equal measures, not murdering. Well, sometimes it's hard not to do that. If you're married, some of you think look, I have to work every day not to kill my spouse. I get that. Not because of my own marriage. I just get that we struggle with things. Maybe it's a teenager, like, oh, I'm going to pull a muscle not killing that kid, okay? But why do we allow ourselves to have things that can get triggered where you can feel that terribly out of control negative, right? It's an out of balance. I believe, maybe you won't agree with me, I believe that in the kingdom, human beings will have found their way to balance. Because Yeshua represents someone who is balanced, emotionally stable, psychologically sound, okay? I appreciate that. And believe me, I would applaud louder than all of you because I get the phone calls from the psychologically and emotionally unbalanced. And by the way, if you call me, I'm not picking on you. Everybody in this room is psychologically and emotionally to some degree unbalanced. So everybody that calls, yes, but usually they're calling because their life is so out of balance that they now no longer know how to handle something in it. Usually their marriage or their children or whatever, their health or finances. But those are your like 4 major things that you can have balance with. Husbands and wives, children, finances, health. Those are your 4 big areas right there, okay? That get out of balance. We're going to be in a kingdom full of people that have found a sound mind. As we're not given a spirit of fear, but the spirit of a sound mind. Although the problem is I don't run into very many of those on a daily basis, including me. We just don't have that. We have fractured, damaged, diminished in their function in terms of our minds. It needs to be healed.